Welcome to Beyond Marketing, the podcast. I'm Maira Genovese. I'm the founder and CEO of MG Empower, a global integrated market agency. Today's conversation is one I have personally been really looking forward to, as we dive into the realities behind building, scaling, and reinventing independent agency. Joining me today is Ivan Fernandes, marketing management consultant and M&A advisor, who for over 2 decades has worked across global agents groups and in independent business, helping founders navigate growth, reinvention, and exit on their own terms. And by the way, I found out now that he's also Portuguese from Lisbon, that we're going to speak Portuguese this episode. No, I'm not. So Ivan, from leadership pressure and founder identity to what truly makes agencies thrive today. This is a very honest conversation about the business and human side of building something that lasts. Ivan, welcome to Beyond Marketing, the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'm so excited. I'm a big fan of, your LinkedIn, your socials. It's a great inspiration tool for me. So now and then I'm always like reading what you talk, and I get anxious, to be honest, about what is going to be next that he's going to talk about it. And I learn a lot. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
And before we start, introduce yourself. Who is Ivan Fernandes? Which I just found out that you're from Portugal, and I got even more excited.
I am an advisor. Like I said, I've been working in the industry for about over 30 years. I came with a big dream, and in terms of working in marketing. So in the last 20, 30 years, now I've been working, helping brands, helping companies, like you, basically make better decisions. So I basically transitioned from working for agencies, now working for myself. And thank you very much for having me. Fantastic. I'm not going to speak in Portuguese because I think my Portuguese is completely broken. Even myself feel very embarrassed in speaking Portuguese. But looking forward to exchange ideas and share as much as I can with you today.
Wonderful. So for me, it's just I'm very curious about your career and how have you been, working from big agencies, big corporations, and then become a consultancy. How was that transition, and why that decision of, because sometimes you can be very controversial on Sometimes I'm being a little bit. Sometimes you can be very controversial for some people for what you write about the old model of agencies. Yes. Where we are, evolving from where we are to where we're going. And it can see that you have a ton of experience and views of past, present, and future.
Yes.
Which I love about it. But tell me a little bit more about your career, like how it started and then where you are today.
Actually, it's quite funny enough. I think probably as you from Brazil. Actually, my passion started from Brazil, actually.
Really?
Yes. I was 13 years old, actually started reading. I think there was about 2 or 3 magazines that from Brazil about business. I was end up going to chemistry. But then later on, I realized that I want to go back to business. So I graduated as a consumer psychologist. Very few people know this. And I wanted to work in marketing. I struggled basically from the beginning to get into marketing. It's very secluded in terms of number of people that get into the industry. And I started working in loads of different agencies, including Below the Line, Through the Line, Publicis, WPP. And I had that kind of experience, went through the ranks. And then actually, funnily enough, I'm not ashamed to say, I went through some redundancies. I went the first redundancy, I believe it was in 2007 with WPP. I didn't learn the lesson, ended up going again to WPP and being redundant again. But twice for the same group.
Wow.
Yeah, the first one was because of the crash. Actually, we were working with a small agency that was very, very good. I think probably the most talented group within WPP. It grew from 30 employees to, I think, 150 in 3 months.
Wow.
Because Microsoft realized this is a fantastic shop. We want to move everything there. And then it was 2008 crash. The whole team basically was broken. It was basically there was a first wave. And even then, I was controversial. And I remember receiving the email from the leadership saying, actually, we need to make some cuts. And my name was not on the list. And I started looking to the names. Okay, all these are great people. Why are you making them redundant?
Make them redundant?
So my first burst of controversial, I wrote an email back to everybody else, to all staff emails. Like,
Always staff emails.
And like I said, this is a wrong decision. You should be sacking these individuals. Actually, luckily, the second round, my name was included.
After the email. Wow.
After the email. And afterwards, when I went through the first part of redundancy, and I took the 3 months off, recharged. They were trying to help me to find a job, but nobody was helping me to find me a job.
They always say that.
They always say that. And like I said, okay, I'm going to focus on myself. I'm going to start looking afterwards. And then when I went back into the market, I had 5 interviews and 5 offers in the first week. And one of them was double PP. Like, okay.
But again?
I was like, okay, I'm going to take it. So I went through that. I was head of digital for planning, went through the ranks. I was always a self-starter. I wanted to basically do things differently, and I actually called the eyes from the EMEA team and the global team, and it's actually, can you come in and do this for the global team? But then I started realizing the dynamics of working for a holding company. And again, there was a conflict of minds, to put it mildly, at the holdco, because like, again, I was saying to them, we should be moving to consulting. And funny enough, I think probably your business around the influencer, that was my area. So I was basically global head for social media for Medicom. So I was in charge of whole strategy for social media. So I was doing deals with YouTube. I was doing deals with Twitter. I was doing deals with Facebook. And I could see some gaps in the market. So I was seeing influencer popping up. I remember back in the day, I had my PA. It was like, I said, can you start tracking some of these guys from Love Island? Because they are getting loads of traction. I was like, okay, why this guy basically is looking for Love Island? So I could see there was an emerge in terms of influencer. So I always looked into ways to grow. And I could see the business was not growing. And there was, a conflict of mind. So I was asked to leave. And I had the choice in terms of what should I do next? Should I go back to
work in another big agency?
A big agency, or should I basically go consultancy? I'd done a bit of a consultancy. I had a friend of mine that reached out and said, can you come in and help us? Independent agency. So I went in as a head of planning strategy. Then afterwards, I wrote a nice email because I saw you basically had Martin Sorrell as a guest. I wrote the lesson that I learned within working with Martin Sorrell, and he reached out and I was actually, Ivan, fantastic post and so on. Like I said to him, actually probably was not a great idea. Why? Why is that? Because actually I'm talking to join Omnicom. As part of the leadership, like this doesn't work very well. So, and he said, don't go there. I'll connect you with our global head of recruitment, of talent in New York. Where do you want to go? And there was one company that I always wanted to go, and basically it's like they didn't have a permanent position, but they had a contract, was Blue State Digital. I'm not sure if you know them.
Not much. I know them, but not in too much detail.
Blue State Digital, basically the guys behind Obama campaign. 2008, yes, 2012. Okay. So basically they done the whole movement in terms of using A/B testing, doing. So I really want to understand how they done it. So it was a 3-month gig. So I went there and that was very successful. So in the back of that, it's like, all right, I'm done with the agencies. I want to go back to consultancy. So I've done a bit of consultancy. So I was at Nestle in Geneva. Then I done some work with Quicksilver, and I was doing loads of consultancy. And I realized one thing is that the agency model was broken. Most clients have their systems are broken. They basically want to be data driven, but everything is broken. So then afterwards, I went to work as an intermediary, and we're helping brands to find agencies. So I was helping brands find influence agency, SEO agency. So I was working with F1, I was working with AXA, I was working with L'Occitane. So helping them find agencies. And I could see there was a massive gap of what they wanted to what's being delivered. What the agencies
can be serviced.
So, and then later saw I progressing to become more advisor, in a sense where I sort of work with loads of different companies from mainly US. There's a lot of US companies that I advise in the technology side. I help private equity-backed investors. I help a lot of family offices that are trying to get into marketing. All of them trying to buy influencer shops.
Yes.
All of it's like the hottest
Is the hottest?
It's the hottest ticket in town. But at the same time, I work with loads of collectives and loads of bodies within the industry that basically I feel that have been left behind. The likes of PR, the likes of out of home, the likes of creative, where experiential, where basically they feel that they are not transitioning. So this is where I am now today. I'm basically helping loads of different companies from around the world. I do loads of speaking events. So I'm going to Cannes this month. I'm going to go to US, going to Barcelona. Last year I was in Tokyo presenting, so Lithuania. So I always try to not just, probably you know from me from the post, I try to have the same conversations at face to face. So every single thing that probably people see I'm controversial, I don't see that as a controversial. I think everybody's got that kind of thinking behind their minds, but
they don't say.
They don't say
talk.
it. They're afraid. And the reason that sort of I started talking more about this is that I realized that our silence helped them to continue doing the same behaviors. And because if we continue to be silent, we need to have more voices. Now we start seeing more voices, people complaining, because there's certain things that don't make any sense.
No.
And that's where basically I start to become more vocal. And in terms of the topics, it's basically, like I said to you earlier before this starts, it's like I go for a run every morning and like basically things that comes to my mind, it's like, okay, I got to...
And then you come back?
I was like, okay, I'm going to be writing about this. Because most of the times what I tend to do is I do tend to have various conversations with people from across the industry. One thing that I realized really very early on is that we are very isolated. We're like islands in marketing. We don't only see our part, and we don't want to understand the finance. We want to understand the M&A. We don't want to understand how people make decisions. So my role is, okay, I want to educate myself in terms of that world. So I want to be talking to people that make decisions around finance. I want to talk to people that basically make decisions, procurement. So I'll try to get outside the box in order to understand their mindset, in order to help me be better at what I do.
And do you think because of that, because you like to navigating different rooms and different, corporations and talk to everyone, as you said, to talk about finance, procurement, and marketing, that's why it came to your conclusion that the agents model is broken?
It's been broken for a while. And I think basically let's recap a little bit. Basically, if you think about it, it's something I actually speak in loads of my talks, is I think there's loads of different small steps that show this being broken. Consulting, one of the key elements is most of the agency model is broken, is right now there's a lack of consultancy. Clients are trying to find partners that understand their problems. Mm-hmm. And most agencies that are not equipped to ask questions. They're equipped to sell things. It's a completely different dynamic. Yes. So that's why we've seen the growth of Accenture, because Accenture came from that space in terms of what's your problem, and we try to find a solution for your business. Agencies are going in with, here's what we service, this is our services, this is what we do, buy it, versus really figure out into what clients want. I think the other side I feel that is broken is more technology driven. Every single thing we do now is technology driven. And most agencies fail to understand how to integrate services, time, and expertise into a level in terms of bringing technology as part of their operating system. And that sort of opened the door to private equity, that they realize actually these guys do not know what to do. We're going to come in with digital first platforms. So they are leaner. They have a platform, they have a different operating model, they have a different revenue model. So they came in with a different approach that basically, in my way, destabilized into the legacy models. Then you had the other big problem is trust. There's a lot of clients that realize that for many years they were dependent on agencies. But they realize actually we can do this by ourselves. we can bring in-house, we can find partners, we can orchestrate relationships. So, and I realized that most of the agencies they're not taking enough risk, and they're just thinking just the money. And they wanted someone to come in and say, actually, if I'm going to pay you, make sure you have the resource to support it. So there's a lot of different signals that basically led into where we are today. So right now, where we are today is loads of different holding groups specifically struggling to find the rhythm. And the rhythm that's aligning with clients, aligned with the market, and goes back to my point earlier on. I think they're still islands. They still feel that we have the solutions. We can go to a room and define what we're going to be.
Define what we're going to do and sell. And
then go outside and follow the same model in terms of we're going to be able to sell what we do versus approaching the consultancy levels. Let's understand what our clients want.
What was the challenge, right? So what's the challenge? What's the solution we can bring? Because I think big corporations, big agencies, they applied the same model and the same strategy to every client, but you cannot put every client into one pot and define that the same strategy is going to work for all of them.
And the other thing about it, I think probably you had Martin Sorrell in this situation. Actually, Martin Sorrell identified in 2017 that basically the model they were offering, a WP model they were offering to FMCGs was wrong. Basically, they needed to change. And they identified they need to adapt. And I think probably for the last few years, they've been trying to find a model that doesn't, for some reason, they struggle. They struggle. But at the same time, there's others that basically within the holding companies, they realize that it's more data-driven, it's technology, it's a platform play. But there's problems with that model itself. I already spoke to loads of them groups. There's issues with that model. And we going to start seeing that problems emerge in the next 12 months. So, because not every business is ready for it.
But do you think that every business needs to be ready for it? Do you think every single agency, being small, medium, big, needs to have technology as the number one add-on into their service or into their process? And because I'm like, sometimes I feel that pressure where technology should be the thing that every founder, CEO needs to be looking at. Do you think that's
why basically my conversation in terms of understanding outside the bubble is important. So if you think about it, most of those groups, they're owned by shareholders, right? Basically, they're public trading companies. Mm-hmm. If you look across all those various groups, there's two names that keep appearing across all of them. In every single brand around the world, BlackRock and Vanguard.
Yes.
So they are present. And if you look into their mandate is that...
technology.
So they sit in every single board, and they basically potentially are doing all the narrative that basically everybody should be driving efficiencies. Everybody should be using AI. Everybody should be using technology.
Because the valuation goes high.
So if you have the shareholders pushing that and at the same time selecting the CEOs that are focused on technology and rewarding them based on doing the things they want, so you have all these elements of technology focus. But at the same time, BlackRock is sitting in some of the brands. So you have this ecosystem
of density on both sides.
And on both sides. And if you, like I said, it's publicly available. You can see that in some of the big brands, BlackRock is one of the biggest. They're quite clever. Basically, if you see some of them is between 5%, sometimes 10%. Normally, it tends to be 10%. And they keep saying, basically, this is my opinion about it, is like they're saying, oh, we're just investing in behalf of our investors, like family offices and so on. But where I see it is they have voting rights, and the voting rights enable them to do other things. So for me, I think that we're moving into this technology world that I think most agencies are not ready for, because they never saw technology.
And then they never saw technology. And then I think from my perspective, from what we do, it's not every brand that we work with that they're interested in technology.
Yes.
So I think there's another side as well, because we like, again, like the industry is going for like technology, AI driven, but are we actually asking the question from the brands and our clients if that's what they're looking for when they're looking for an agency?
I think it's interesting. I think there's two mandates. I think we need to figure out what's going on at the client side. The client side, like I said, we're talking about why there's an issue right now. I think the client side, there are being loads of different changes, including the CMO position.
Yes.
CMOs, basically, and there's significant amount of studies out there that the tenure of a CMO has been decreasing for the past 10 years. And what's driving that is technology. Technology basically been creating that kind of friction within big brands.
Yeah.
So because technology sits with the CTO. The CTO is not a marketeer.
No, he's not.
So you have someone, basically a CMO, that's got the brand kind of conversation, and more budgets now moving to technology. So those two need to be, like I said, need to be one, and they're not one.
Because it's difficult for you to find a skill of someone that is a good marketeer, but is also good in technology and become one role, because there's complete different skills.
So, and then on the back of that, you have this kind of the CEOs of most of these big corporations standing around as actually, CMO, you're not doing the job. You're not bringing the money. You're the only guy from our business that looks outside. And you should bring the money. So because you're not delivering it, so the 10 is decreasing. And because now the CMO is not trusted with the money, the CFO gets involved. So he needs to babysit the CMO.
The budget that's involved, and then making sure that the ROI is there.
So you have all this kind of ecosystem that basically is driving. But at the same time, to your point, they have the CEOs like, okay, this AI. There's different industries, they're growing at different paces. And most of my experience working with lots of different brands is their data capability is not there. The ambition they have outside is big, but when you look at inside the business, they don't have the processes, don't have the data, don't have the technology. I've seen it, and basically it's scary. But at the same time, they're asking for the agency to be bring us innovation. We want to win awards. Perfect. But there's no synergy. And the problem that you have in terms of AI that I'm seeing is sometimes you have agencies going too fast compared to the business that exists. And you have this creating this massive gap between how you align that. And I think if you go to different industries, different verticals, like pharma, you can't go too far because
you can't go too far because of the farm.
Yes. So you have pharma, you have automotive, probably they are more open. Entertainment, basically they lack the kind of because reaching out, but then you have banking, they have regulation. So you have different verticals. So the thing gets to the problem in terms of how you break down this future strategy based on different verticals. And then you have another layer underneath that, different regions, because different regions don't have the
completely different.
Completely different. For example, what you do in UK is very different you do in Brazil.
Oh my God, and what we do in US is completely different from what you do in UK, and then off we go.
So different regions, they have different mandates, different pressures, different networks supporting.
Different cultural, yeah.
So, and makes it very, very difficult as well in terms of sometimes even the capabilities. Sometimes you have different markets with different expertise from the client point of view and from the agency point of view. So there's a lot, is not an easy answer, but at the same time, there's a lot of complexity that I think most of the situations that I look back, and that's why I try to bring some clarity to that, is that agencies are not thinking of that. They're just thinking, okay, we're going to have a platform. We're just going to sell it and people are going to buy it. It's like, okay, how many people in the world, or many brands in the world can buy your platform? It's not a lot of them. That basically, yes, you can have 100, 200, 300. What about all the other brands that make between 50 to 100 million? What are you going to offer to them?
It's not being intentional about why technology and why AI. I feel like everyone wants to add it on, but without being intentional on the why and how and what's the add value that they're going to bring into their business and their clients.
It's efficiency, but it's a money play. because basically they're all under pressure. And I think this goes back to the agency or every single agency. Is about the margins.
It's about the margins.
So you want to basically, you can have as much revenue as you want. You want to build an operating system that enables you to capture more margin. Because the problem that you have is marketing now, and I think that's why there's so many eyes to holdcos, is most investors, because I have conversations with some institutional investors. They are looking, okay, right, why you just have between 12 to 15, 16% margin? If I put my money on Facebook or Meta or Google, it's like, okay, why are you not growing like them? Why are you so heavy? Like, it's basically they are making that comparison between the two, and I think is an interesting space where, and I think the bigger conversation is what should be the agency of the future looks like. That's why one of the key things I'm doing, I'm working with loads of people from different industries, from different holdcos, where we actually get together every 2 weeks and we are discussing, okay, bring your expertise, how we build something for the future. And
what do you think is the agency of the future is going to look like?
I think it's going to be smaller. It's going to be leaner. I think private equity I think the Stagwell model is quite interesting. Actually, I wrote about that in some of my posts, because they combined 4 different key elements. So they have an agency, they have products and services, they have a platform, and they have one thing that basically very few actually doing this. They have the VC model, incubator model. So they actually buy smaller shops, bring to the mix, grow them, and then sell them. I think that's interesting. But I think agency of the future is data will be important, technology will be important, but I think the other thing will be important will be expertise. And I think agency of the future is about clarity of saying where do we want to play and where we don't want to play. And this we're actually seeing in terms of private equity guys when they're building this kind of roll-ups. They're actually being very specific. We want to be a performance-led private equity group, Brain Labs.
Yeah.
We want to be an influencer-based SAMI from Spain. So basically, they focus on the influencer space. And you have some people want to be in the production side. So they're picking the places where they want to win and to be the leaders. And I think the other thing that I see, is orchestration is a bigger play. So I'm seeing Ages of the Future is about orchestration. What I mean about orchestration is, it's not about you growing by acquiring things, new assets. It's about you partnering with the right people and get together with minds and build expertise to a level where you are working seamless across different players. A good example is what we actually seeing. Like I said, I always sit outside our industry. It's like with NVIDIA. NVIDIA basically is is the most profitable company in the world, market cap and so on. But they don't manufacture their own chips. They assemble from different parts. So this is why Agents of the Future is about assembling the right components into a platform that can basically grow or diminish depending on the client. So that addressed that kind of challenge that I was telling you about in terms of how do we make sure that it's relevant for vertical? Because you can assemble, or for a different region, you can assemble the right factors. So that requires a different operating system, requires a different ways of working, different talent, and a different approach. But you can't only change the agency model, but you need to change how agencies work with brands and how brands work with agencies. So I'm not saying there's going to be just one way change, but it needs to be an ecosystem play change.
And where the big groups stay into that equation?
I think they're struggling. Like I said, if you look in terms of into big groups, like there's a change of CEO at WPP, there was a change at Dentsu. Vivendi basically have decided to go solo.
But then you have Publicis.
They have Publicis. Okay, Publicis right now probably is ahead because they actually went through the pain and went early on, and they have enough cash flow to make investments. But I think...
Do you think they are doing the right acquisitions?
Yes, because I think they're fixing things that they knew they need to fix, and they're preparing to the next phase. Because I think probably at this moment in time, I think if you look in terms of comparison, Publicis is so far ahead that I think they are looking, okay, right, if we want to improve, who do we should compete with?
Yeah.
And the bigger player out there is Accenture. And Accenture is basically the place that, in my view, they are trying to go into. But it's quite interesting. I had a conversation with senior leadership of Accenture 2 weeks ago. And it was like, I said, oh, yeah, our focus is not there.
It's just like, which is good for them.
We said we are doing our own thing. And it was just really, really open as well. And I think from that conversation we had with the leadership from Accenture was quite interesting because they were talking about something that all these holding companies are struggling to do is they say, okay, right, the role of creativity. So creativity is actually, there's an issue of our creativity in terms of data, insights. I think always that missing. Like I have been having loads of conversations with loads of CMOs, and that's missing because the focus now, because of the pressure, everything's about performance.
It's about performance.
So we don't care. We don't want to build brand. We want to build performance. You want just results. And I think probably agencies of the future are going to be start looking more about the brand experiences.
Talking about creativity, AI is not going to replace creativity. What is your thought around that? Because I talk a lot, like, as with with people from the industry as well, and then creativity is just like the key word of like how brands need to position when it comes to technology and AI. What's your view on creative?
I think creativity I think is going to be more important than ever. But needs to change.
In which way?
In each way, because I think the problem that we have with the creativity model is because I work with loads of creative directors, and for them is like what they know is law. They need to change. Everybody else needs to change around
that. But they can continue to do the way they do it.
The way they do it. So the thing, I think probably from the creative industry, I think they need to adapt to the new world. They need to figure out, okay, right, this is the new rules of the game. And this is how we need to play and how we adjust. I think creativity is going to be more important because when everybody's doing platform play, because they are doing the same thing.
The same thing.
Data, production, and creativity, basically with a bunch of agencies put it together, and technology and data. So they're putting all of that things together. So they're all actually selling the same thing. They're all apples, but different types of apples. So the question is how do you bring a different element? So that's when creativity comes into place. How do we create something that creates an identity for our group? And that's at the same time, I think the other thing that's missing is the consultancy piece. Because they need to have consultancy. And I mean, if they are listening to this, please do. They need to have a consultancy and not to make the mistake they do all the time. They we're going to create a consultancy that is a revenue generator. No. So you need to have a consultancy to have conversation with clients, to understand their problems, to understand what are their challenges, to be a partner, to really figure out. And when you have a conversation with them, it's not about selling. Is about making sure that you help them with solutions. And if the solution includes your services,
then bank.
Yes. So creativity comes together because I think clients they realize that we live in a world that is so fragmented. Ideas become king. It's how you connect. That's why I basically go back to my background as a consumer psychologist, that I feel very disappointed in my own industry or many times you go to a pitches, you don't see the insight person, a data person. So the key component of a campaign is connect with another individual, connect with the masses.
Oh my God, 100%.
And most of the times is if you go to any agency, they don't have an insight person. They're not trained. So we need to go back to this kind of creativity powered by data, but the right information. The research, understanding how do we make things connect with consumers? How do we leverage that in a technology-driven world? How do we create planting seeds in a journey? How we tell is a storytelling.
It's a storytelling, 100%. And also when you're pitching, if you're bringing to our pitch first your insights in your research is when you can really win the client because they will see that you had the time to research and to look at the insights of what you present is backed by data. Yeah. So it's just not like an idea without having a a research or an insight behind of your idea. I think this is kind of like a very good winning model.
And actually, I was working, like I said, I always think about this approach in terms of going back and understanding the reason, connecting. Like, even like, I remember I was working on a project about 8 months, not 8 years ago, actually, 9 years ago for Greg's. So Greg's basically said, actually, we need to reposition. We're thinking, they had like a presence in London, but like secondary rows that we want to launch in London. So, okay, you need to have not just launch, you need to have a presence in key areas in London. And you need to have the London market is a different, they're very healthy conscious, and people look at your menu, it's like, there's not. So one of the key things I've done is like, I went, because I said, okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to spend time observing your customers, understand what do they do. So I went to loads of different Gregs to really understand
the behavior,
the behaviors, who's going there, why they're going there. And I think one of the key things that we need to figure out is going back to connecting ideas and creativity with the right moment. Right now, for example, sometimes you have media planners and buyers, people working in creative that basically they're trying to sell a car. They don't have a driving license. Yeah. You have people trying to sell mortgages that never owned a mortgage. So we want to be able to have this kind of way of bringing real insights and surprise clients, tell them. And like from the client point of view, most of the situations, they need to take care of their data. Because I've been so many times when going to run pitches for them where they said, we have data, we have a profile. And you look, when you have done that research 6 years ago.
Yeah, it's like, so it's just pointless.
It's like, okay, and you, during the 6 years, you've done influencer, you've done this, you've done campaigns.
It's pointless.
And it's like, but for them, it's low. And I think the key thing about it is, and that takes into another challenge that we have, is like one of the most difficult things to sell as an agency is insights. The most difficult to sell is reporting and measured advanced analytics. But that shouldn't be the case, because
that should be the number one thing in an agency. Because at the end of the day, like even when you report for results of a campaign, you need data, you need the insights, you need the proper report that's gonna tell you what worked and what didn't work. But it's not every agency that is is prepared for the deep level of analytics that's required when you're working with a brand.
One thing that actually I've done, I think this was basically, I think it was my first project. And when I went to Medicom, actually. And like I said, okay, I went in, it's like, there's a product in here. It's like, okay, what about if we integrate all the data sources? I was like, okay, right. Then I was like still coming from my data nerd days. Like, okay, I was doing, putting together databases. So it's okay, right. We have ComScore that tell us who they are with such they visit. The other side, we have Nielsen data. If we put all that thing together, what if we integrate our performance data? Because we know. We know,
yes.
We know in terms of where we run. And if then after that, if we can put in terms of cost, how much it costs, if putting all of that together. And I'd done that. I was like, okay, was my first project, was me like nerding, and I put together like a nice visual and that went in as a transformative product that Medicom was doing. But I was like, I said, why nobody done this before? Thinking it from a planning point of view, I find an audience, I find a spa, figure out how,
and then blend it together.
So all start from data that links into the strategy. And I think from my point of view, I think we as an industry focusing too many things into that actually are important, but I think the data side, the research, the understanding the consumers is probably the most important thing.
You talk a lot about independent agency.
Yes.
And how this moment in time that we live in the industry can play a great, advantage to independent agents. And why do you think that?
It's been going for a while, actually. Only now we sort of gain traction, because I think independent agents have been winning business, smaller businesses.
Yeah.
But now we are seeing the tension in terms of people realizing there's a few reasons. One is because of the in-housing. Because most clients realize we want to bring in-house, but we need the expertise.
Yeah, and the expertise you weren't going to get from
Yes,
agency.
so they like to get tactical. They like to get smaller shops that are more agile. So basically what you have a smaller, from the independent point of view, you have what I call TLC. They for them, you are the biggest client in the world because like they love the brand, and so they will move everything in order to make you happy, and you feel that. So, okay, I'm very important, but at the same time, we are seeing a very crowded market. So there's far too many independent agencies. It's how do you get the recognition of the work you do? Because normally who get the recognition tends to be the big players.
Yes.
And it's too many of them. I think one of the key things, I think independence should be getting more recognition. But more brands are realizing that there's a value working with independents. And actually, I'm getting calls from holdcos now.
Wow.
I had a call from senior leadership within a Omnicom from one of the agencies. And the question was, Ivan, we are seeing a lot of independent agencies popping up in our pitches. What's going on? They're like, yes. And then I had the following week, I had a call for someone in New York as well from WPP that is still there. And so, yes, we are seeing that. So there is this kind of flexibility in terms of seeing the value. I'll give you a very good example. I was working, I was doing intermediate pitch. I was managing a pitch for AXA Investment Management.
Yeah.
So they were looking for a search agency and a PPC agency across Europe. So I helped them to write the brief, select the agencies. I was managing the pitch. And I selected a blend between holdcos
and
independents, and basically new guys coming from like mini groups. And the clients basically realized through the process, because I was doing the briefs with the clients and so on, because we take them to see, and it's like, actually, we don't like the holdco model because it's very complex, very big,
complex, very
big, and we like this agile model. So they end up going with a smaller shop, very agile, because it was personal. The guys were all over the place.
There's emotional connection there straight away.
And even for me, I was quite surprised, because they made significant amounts of mistakes. I'm not going to name the agency. There was one presentation we went, I think it was like towards the end, they had like 120 slides. It's like, what are you doing?
Who does present 120 slides?
I was just like, nowadays? And they overrun and so on. But they could see they cared. It was like they were doing the effort. And actually, this is people that we can work with. And I think this becomes a very personal, and I think from the holding company and versus independence, I think is that kind of relationship, is that kind of trust. The clients like that. They realize that they can be themselves and with an independent verse, because they realize actually you are suffering, we are suffering as well, and they basically they are prepared, and they realize that independence. They have the right capabilities. They're driven. They're smaller. They're agile. They're go-getters. But there's problems with independence. Is how you grow, how you scale, how you maintain that DNA, how do you maintain that kind of strength and be curious, and how you build that kind of balance when you have.
And what the risk that you're gonna take, because as an independent agency, you wanted to grow, but growth, who you probably need to bring. Or an investor or a partner, but then how to keep the structure of an independent agency when you're bringing.
You must have lots of conversations.
Yes, a lot of conversations, but I have been through it. So I sold my agency in 2021 for a massive, big biotechnology company in US. So I sold 100% big company, public company. 2021, and because it was straight after pandemic, and then during the pandemic was the time that independent agency at the time was like booming, because brands, they were not investing on real life experience because you could not get out of home. So there was the boom of e-commerce and social media, and then TikTok came big at that time. So for us, it was, instead of like going down, we were like going up.
Okay.
And then after pandemic, the traction was just like unbelievable of like private equity, venture capitals and big companies trying to, okay, who are the big players of influencer marketing and social media that we can, because we saw that there was a potential. So I sold 100% in 2021 in August, and then I bought it back in 2023. And buying back in 2023, I have to restructure the whole model again, because when I sold, we were like 45 people. When I bought it back, it was like 125 people with office in New York and London and Sao Paulo. And I have to do a massive restructure in order to bring back the soul and the culture that I have lost on these 2 years. And then it's been a journey now of like, which I restructure luckily. And now I feel like if there's any other opportunity for investment or exit or anything, I will be much more careful of how I will structure the deal, because when I did the first time, we were a completely different business and we start losing rather than winning, even with the big investment behind us.
Yeah, I think the challenge what you have is basically money changes you.
Yes.
And when money comes to the door, they come with the different objectives. I think one of the mistakes that people don't realize, they just see the check and basically don't figure out in terms of what do they really want to do with my business.
Growth with no cost. And
yes.
that's so, when you put yourself to fail.
And for them, there's basically the attachment you have with your clients in the past is they don't have that kind of attachment.
They don't have it. They don't care.
And they don't care. So this is what I'm trying to say, I think, is money in some situations don't care how you do it. There's some players that basically, I have one family office that I work with and basically said, Ivan, we only buy businesses that where the founder wants to stay. We just basically want to just make sure the numbers are going in the right direction. Yeah. We want to cross over in terms of P&L, but we don't want to run the business. So there's a huge amount of investors looking at that way. But the big majority of private equity backed tends to be, we want, because they, and this is the other thing that actually I try to educate myself into that. Like I said, I've been doing like some executive courses. I done finished 2. One about M&A to help people into the M&A process.
By the way, if in the future I have the first round that when I sold in 2021, that's the biggest mistakes that I have done in my whole career, which cost me a lot in the down the future, was to do that first acquisition without having an M&A advisor.
Yes. So I do.
Big mistake.
So I've done that. And the second, okay, right, this is a good thing. The second thing I sort of decided to do was like I finished the venture capital and private equity investment strategies. Objective, again, I done through the Imperial Business School as well. I wanted to understand what are the things they want, how they build a term sheet and how they make money. And how basically they define a deal, a good deal and a bad deal, how they do an LBO, how they structure LBO. That helps me to understand when they go and buy and when these acquire, what is the objectives. So one of the key things people don't realize is from a private equity, they make money. The most money they make is in the exit. So
when they sell to venture capital after 4 years.
They need to sell it at a specific. That's why the reason you have in terms of the focus on the profitability is because they only get 2% management fees. So even though they own your business, they need to get to over 20% with carry in order to
get like 2% down the line when they sell to a venture capital.
So they basically need to make the numbers be very, very profitable, because normally is the private equity, only the investors get the money first and then the private equity. So they need to hit the numbers.
To get the 2%.
Yes. So they need to invest. They need to get, in order to get that bonus and to get to be profitable. Otherwise, it's not profitable. So one of the key things for me is understanding those various elements. And to your point, selling to independent, there's a huge amount of independence. But one of the key things when I talk to my investors, they are looking not very realistic in some situations. They're looking for no debt. They're looking for a great 3-year plan in terms of growth. They're looking for niche plays, influencer. They're looking for some level of a revenue stream that is basically retainer based, meaning that is, do you have some level of products that provides like recurring revenue?
Retention it's key, like for any business and any investor.
But at the same time, I spoke to lots of different people where they're being acquired and they went through private equity, and for them, like, Ivan, it's hell in here. It's just like, and they have CEOs calling me, it's like, okay, oh my God, what have we done?
I know the feeling.
And it's like I said, look, they don't have targets at daily basis, like weekly basis. We're gonna cut people, but at the same time, they're asking to do changes. It's like it's a completely different business because they realize it's a
because you change of ownership, right? And then also direction,
yes,
and vision.
And this is and I think probably people don't realize they are not they are passengers. They're not the real owners. Because they know that basically we're going to be here for 3-4 years and then we're going to be gone.
Sell. I think that's why it's so important. Like when it's like lesson that I had, it's just like whatever you go next is ensure that there's an alignment on the vision, right? Because it can be working now without having an investor or private equity involved. But if it's working now the way it is, if someone's come onto the board, it has to be the same vision in order to the machine continue to work. Because if you come in and change it drastically, what attracted you to buy because you saw that it was a good business, it's going to fail because you're going to change what was working. So what is the balance that needs to be found there?
Yeah, there's a few people now, actually, some of the guys I'm advising, they actually people come from the industry. So basically that marketeers work in agency. So they know, they can see the deals in a different way. Even in one of the other things, I'm talking to loads of, even procurement. So I'm talking to I advise loads of procurement teams, and some of the procurement teams are ex-agency. So we are seeing a change of guard, but to your point, I think there needs to be a shift in terms of how we see it, how we sell it. And I think the other thing is again, it's because we are, as marketeers, we're not being educated.
Yes.
And it's like I said, we haven't been educated in terms of how to manage growth.
Yes.
We have, and basically for us, it's like we need to be growing all the time. Yes. We need to win big clients all the time. We need to basically be on a big stage all the time. And even sometimes because you're always looking ahead, you're not looking behind. Like I said, where you are today is a great place. It's safe. You know where your money comes from. And to your point earlier on about the AI, some of them are making the mistake, okay, everybody's doing AI.
And I have to do the AI.
I need to do AI.
And then you just forget what is actually working to focus on something that you don't even know if it's going to work.
Yes. And then basically in terms of AI, and the other thing I'm seeing across the industry, people making loads of bets. The problem is some of them are running off cash.
Yes.
And this is where basically liquidity is important. So loads of them jump in last year and say, okay, AI is the next thing. And then realize, actually, in order for us to be in the game, we need to keep investing. It's like one of those kind of machines with the music. You don't keep listening to music, you need to keep putting the coins. So most of them are realizing that because they went too far, they haven't built the right solution, and that solution keeps changing all the time. They need to keep inventing, reinventing, changing, finding, and it's still until they find a solution. So I think for independents, my advice is appreciate where you are. Don't try to grow too fast. The other mistake they tend to do is like, okay, we want big clients, we want to grow, we want to add new services. And sometimes they do like, okay, we have one person, that person is going to be in charge. And then you turn around to, okay, where's the profitability? Come on, why are you not generating money?
Yes.
Why are you not bringing the money? It's like, oh, didn't work. 6 months, you change it. And the other mistake they tend to do, and I think I included some of the agencies from the independence point of view, is sometimes they have the right product, they're not in the right climate, and they figure out it's us. We need to reposition. No, we need to change ourselves. We need to change everything. I feel that basically we need to think ourselves that in terms of looking to the mirror and figure out how can we improve ourselves, find our weaknesses, be aware of them, and basically go back and really figure out in terms of what are the things that we can do to avoid these kind of mistakes we do in terms of getting. There was this client that I mentioned earlier on that I went to work as a head of planning. because the guy left. It was a small team, so they needed a head of planning and strategy. So I went in, big ideas, coming from the big thing about holdcos and so on. With that mindset, so I knew how to pitch.
Yes.
So I knew how to have that conversation. First, I was basically cleaning one big project, a global client that basically was not happy. So I came in, like, okay, this is what you need. Perfect. And then my phone rang. And I think probably, not sure if you had this conversation before or this experience, phone rang. So, okay, who is this? Switzerland. Okay. We are P&G. We have a challenge regarding to we want to build a CRM program across Europe. I thought of you guys and so on. Would be interested. Would you put together like some ideas how we'd approach it? I was like, okay. This how we'd approach it. This how we do it, and so on. It's about Ivan. We've a limited budget, like tiny thing. This is going to be a taster. If you do well, you're going to be part of our roster. Okay. I sold it to business. Okay, let's do this. I put my best comms planner, my best data guy, and we went. The project went fantastically well. So the client became like a superstar internally. He was promoted twice.
Wow.
And basically won awards internally. From that 30K project, we have this kind of big ambition in terms of, okay, we're just going to become like 150,000 to 250,000 per year, retainer. We're going to do that. Never happened. Similar one, I had the same time in the space of 2 weeks, and I won ESPN. ESPN reached out, so Ivan, I have a problem. We've done this acquisition. We have all these amounts of data. We don't know what to do with it. So we want to be able to translate that into a decision. Should we keep it? Should we get rid of it? And so on. So we had this period of 2 weeks. We had two big global brands. So what the business done is, remember what I was telling you about,
yes.
in terms of thinking beyond the means.
Now
we are a different type of agency. Now we're going to structure ourselves into the future. Now the target is not just a small. It's the big thing. So this is
interesting. If you have to tell one thing of a piece of advice for agencies, small, medium, big, what that piece of advice would be?
Listen to your customers. Listen to your clients. Don't go to sell. Don't try to sell. Go there and just listen. Even though that you're not going to be selling anything, don't go there. Try to be a partner. I think this is the relationship. This is one of the key things that I think we lost track, is because we sort of focus on selling services, P&L and so on. But most clients, they will basically trust you more if you are listening. And sometimes you give this unbiased advice. So you are there to their success, to their failures, and you basically be a trusted advisor. Listen.
It's the human connection that we cannot lose because of AI, I think. 100%. Ivan, oh my God, what an amazing conversation. I could stay here with you like forever, because there's so much to learn from you, from your experience, and for being navigating into so many different, business and corporations and be a consultant. You have been exposure to so much, which can give us great insights and insights that are very valuable and make us think. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much. And hopefully speak to you again at some point.
Yes, we will. And thank you so much for everyone that's been listening to us today. I hope you have enjoyed this incredible, insightful conversation with Ivan. If you're not following us yet, make sure you do on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, and Amazon. And I see you guys on the next episode. And thank you so much again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.